Good evening. It's another edition of my journey on GBC News. My name is Beatrice Senaju. Ghana has not yet explored the potential of dairy farming compared to other African countries. With little or no knowledge about rearing cows for dairy, only few people venture into this business on a small scale with no umbrella body, checking the amount or quality of milk produced and processed for both local and international consumption. Most dairy farmers also resort to the free-range system rather than current trends of keeping and housing cattle on the farm. This has resulted in unpleasant situations sometimes between nomadic herdsmen and farmers. But many believe that Ghana's dairy sector can become lucrative with the right investment to compete with their counterparts on the continent. I decided to visit some farms and came across a 56-year-old dairy farmer who is changing the narrative with a zero-grazed farm. Come along with me to bring you details of his journey. Even though Africa's dairy industry faces many challenges, including low productivity per cow, inconsistent milk quality, and the high cost of production, the experts say the dairy value chain is a dynamic sector and critical to Africa's rural economy, and many African countries have changed their fortunes through dairy farming, examples being Ethiopia, Kenya, Sudan, Zimbabwe, South Africa and Uganda top the list of dairy farming on the continent. But Ghana is yet to make her mark in dairy farming. Players in the sector attribute this largely to the few dairy farmers currently rearing cattle to produce milk in the country, often on a small scale. They often rear the cattle and sell its meat. Many say Ghana has not benefited over the years. In my quest to find out why Ghana's dairy farming sector is virtually stagnant, I came across one dairy farmer making strides with a zero-grazed farm. Ghana is said to be losing out big time on the ever-increasing demand for cow milk in the world. Ironically, dairy farmers and producers in Ghana still resort to the traditional way in rearing and keeping their cattle under the free-range system against the present-day technologies in keeping and housing cattle in other countries. Most dairy farmers elsewhere in Africa are cashing in on it big time, but what is Ghana doing to be at the forefront when it comes to dairy farming? Join me as I explore one of the leading dairy farms in Ghana. A first-time visitor to the farm is likely to be impressed with the setting. My interaction with my host, Reverend Dr. Ebenezer Ejay, revealed the beginnings of the farm. How did it all start?
Well, there was this time when an agric director came to me and talked to me about dairy farm. I didn't have any idea of that, but eventually we had to go in for some training, and then I bought some 2 animals from Amaya farms to start with.
It wasn't as dangerous walking around the cattle ranch as I always thought, and there are some reports of cattle destroying farmlands and injuring people. But this farm experience was different. I could move about fearlessly.
This is a naughty girl. A very naughty girl.
Virtually all cattle here have names: Christopher, Ya, Beautiful, Highly Favored, among others. Amazingly, they respond immediately to their names.
Yeah, he's got a very good job. Yeah, you know. Get out of this. Come on. Move up. Move this way.
So I asked why they chose to give them names.
When animals are given names, they feel part of the human system and they can give you their best. So that's the reason why we give them names. And when we call them by their names, they respond. And that helps us to be able to give them instructions. For instance, if a particular animal is misbehaving, you can call the name and stop it.
They do stop?
Really, they do.
For the past 11 years, 56-year-old Reverend Dr. Ebenezer J has worked on his dairy farm. He started with only 2 animals and currently has about 100 cattle. He said studying agriculture in school has been an advantage in the dairy farm business.
I did agric, so I think that's one of the things that helped me in the dairy farm presently. But I knew that God had called me to be a pastor way back in school. So, but the timing was not there, so I didn't go into pastorate. But after a while, when the fullness of time came, I had to go into full-time ministry. But because I love animals, even though I was in full-time ministry, all along I was having some animals with me.
Each cow is capable of producing between 25 to 40 liters of milk a day. In a peak season, about 1,400 liters of milk is produced every week.
Presently, I think we are close to 1,400 liters. By next week or next month, we should be hitting 1,400 and above a week.
Is there a ready market for it?
Yes, there's a little challenge, especially around this time when the weather is cold. When the processing of the milk will not go so fast on the market, then those who also take the factories that take our milk do not really come for a lot of them, because when they go, it takes a long time for them to be able to sell. But getting to the lean season or the hot season, it really goes very fast.
Reverend Dr. Ejay's dairy farm is zero-grazed. This means the cattle are fed right on the farm.
Zero-grazing farm is very challenging. You need to feed the animals in situ, and not only that, but you also have to give them all that they require if they were outside grazing out in the wild. So you have to give them salt lick, and if you don't have all of these information on your fingertips, it means that you are going to let them go deficient. Sometimes they can run out of calcium, especially when you are milking them. So you need to know how to augment the calcium through some form of infusion or some means, and that's what's going to give you great success. Otherwise, you will have a lot of challenges. So that's what has caused people not to.
He believes the zero-grazed dairy farm is one sure way to reduce the menace of Fulani herdsmen.
Yes, with the current situation we have, especially with this Fulani menace, I think if we do zero grazing, we can really reduce the problems that we have between the inhabitants of places and then the Fulanis. We won't have animals go into people's farms to graze or to destroy their farms.
He said starting a dairy farm is not too difficult because it is not that expensive.
Starting a dairy farm does not require very much. You don't need even to go in for a loan. You may have some family support and then maybe pay back. All you need to do is to start with a few. I started with two, and then I added one later on, and then here we are, a lot of animals around. With time, he can develop it gradually until he comes to this state. We didn't take off and then get to this state.
Reverend Dr. Ejay believes dairy farming holds a lot of prospects, and if Ghana adopts the culture of milk drinking as is being done in other African countries, it will go a long way to increase demand while improving on the nutritional status, especially of the children.
Big future for dairy farming in Ghana. I was thinking about the schools, where we have the feeding program. If the government will perhaps introduce the intake of milk in the schools, then it becomes a culture with the children. Once they grow up, they will want to also go in and buy the milk themselves. And that's going to open up the milk industry or the dairy industry so wide.
Reverend Dr. Ebenezer Ejay, who is also a full-time pastor, says both jobs are time-consuming.
When you are pastoring and doing some other thing, you need to apportion your time very well so that you have enough time for the pastoring work, because that's your major calling. And the other things are just, I call this one a hobby, because that is not my calling. That is not what God brought me into the world for. So pastoring is my greatest passion. I do this one as a matter of releasing tension, especially when I've gone to the office and I've really gotten into a lot of stress. When I come home and I go into the farm, I look at the animals, well, my stress levels go down. Why? Because I've seen animals, and that's what I love so much.
He currently employs 6 permanent staff and 4 on part-time basis. Promise Ahiable is the lead milker here on the farm.
These ones are better than the wild cows and others. These ones, we roll them inside, so they give a lot of milk. In terms of milk, they are best. They don't get any disease, but leaving them outside, they can get disease and they will quickly die.
A few months ago, government launched its Rearing for Food and Jobs project, an initiative developed to make the livestock industry competitive. Dr. Ejay said the program is a good one, but must be properly monitored to sustain it.
I think that is a very good idea, and then there must be a follow-up, because if you teach someone to do something and you don't supervise the person from the onset, you don't take care, the person can lose, because probably the person is not well checked. Then the government must also do a follow-up for a period of time until the people are well established, and then we'll get there.
He mentioned some challenges.
A particular disease we call mastitis is an infection of the breast, and it's a worldwide problem. And here in Ghana, it looks like we have not really researched so much into it to be able to combat, because we don't have many dairy farms. Apart from that too, I have talked about the sales of the milk. If you have a lot of milk and there's no market for it, you have headache, because milk is perishable. So if you keep the milk for a long time, the quality depreciates, even if you put it in a deep freezer.
Reverend Dr. Ejay believes Ghana can be at par with neighboring milk producing countries in a few years.
If a lot of people come into the milk industry or the dairy industry, what they have to do is to have organization. They come together in association form, and then they can also have a factory. In that case, all the milk can be absorbed in the factory, you understand, and then they can be processed and then sent to the market.
He plans to open up his dairy farm and also add a milk processing factory for export purposes. Reverend Dr. Ebenezer Ejay believes Ghana's dairy farming sector will grow if the youth are encouraged to venture into the business. He says farmers will produce more when Ghanaians create a culture of drinking milk and thereby create more jobs to grow the rural economy. With what I have seen here today, I believe Ghana stands to gain should the country encourage dairy farming. It is obvious that the byproduct alone can create more jobs for the teeming unemployed youth and turn the fortune of the economy around. Beatrice Sanaju reporting for GBC News. This is where we draw the curtain on my journey today. Do join us same time next week. Enjoy the rest of the news. In sports, a 12-day tennis training and knowledge enhancement program for girls between the ages of 10 and 16 is underway in Accra Sports Stadium. More than 50 girls are participating.
Double sideline. Double sideline. So when I mention the line, just run to the line in front.
The Women in Sports Network Ghana, in collaboration with the Ghana Tennis Federation and the Peter Mensah Foundation, are organizing the 2019